Hey, what's up? Andrew Reby here with a quick video. On eSupport, it was asked, how do I get multiple labels per item in order entry based off of the item's quantity? So you can see here, I have added 6 items into order entry, and I've changed the quantity of each one to a new value, except for, of course, this standard tall. If I now go to my report center, set up reports, and find my cabinet labels report, and they're all going to function about the same here. And go to view it, you'll see I get 6 items. Well, I need more than 6 labels because I have way more than 6 cabinets that I'm actually going to produce. So how do we solve that? Well, it's going to take a little more than something entirely simple. We have to create a VB script that's going to create a numbers table. And this numbers is something that we can join together on the cabinets table to increase the amount of records we have. So I've gone ahead and I have written this script right here. You can see it's pretty simple. It's about 31 lines of code. And we're going to go over what this does. So I have some constants up here. These are the variables that I can change more easily and not have to go through and rename or rechange things out. So I have a num table, which is the name of the table that I'm going to create, and then the max quantity, which will be the maximum number of items I can use. You can have 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. I think some 100 million is like the limit. Not sure why you'd want that many, but basically, if you know you do a lot of items that up to 10 in quantity, then set that to your max quantity. If it's supposed to be 50, if that's the maximum you usually go for, do that instead. So let's go on. We have the subroutine main, which is going to be called whenever the script runs. So that's our first item. Then we have to create the variables for the actual subroutine. And we have the data access object, the database, the SQL, the record set, and I. We'll get into what all these mean in just a moment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an object. Just so you know, I'm not going to require you to pause and then type all these things in. I'll post a text file where you can copy and paste these in. I just want to make sure you understand what this all is. So back at it, set DAO, the data access object, and we create this database engine. So the VB script knows how to interact with our database. Next, we open up the report database. From here, the first thing we do is we tell it on error resume next. That means if something happens that you don't like, just keep going with the code. Don't stop. Then we tell it to attempt to drop our table. That means it's going to take our GS num table here, the numbers, and it's going to try and delete it from the database because we want to clear out all of the old data first. All right, that's why we want to continue if we get an error. If there's no numbers table, then it's just going to poo-poo out. And in this instance, it's going to poo-poo out, and then it will keep working. Once that's done, now we want it to actually go to proper errors. So we can tell it on error, go to 0. Next, we create the SQL that's going to create the actual numbers table. And then we tell the database to create that table. Next, we're going to tell the database to open this record set. Basically, we're going to open that table we just created for us to edit. And then we're going to go here and we're going to run what's called a loop. We're going to tell it to go from 1 to this max quantity. So for 1 to 10, it's going to add a new record, set that number to whatever I is, which is why we need I, and then update the record set. And once that's all said and done, we're going to set the data access object to nothing. Because if we don't, it's going to kind of hold in memory and it's going to eat up our resources. And then we end the subroutine. And that's that. That's a basic breakdown of what this does. If you want to learn more about VB scripts, which I recommend everybody should do if you're getting into reporting, You can look online and just type in VBScript how-to or VBScript tutorial, or even post on our eSupport website on how do I do this script, what's wrong with my script, and we'll do our best to help you as we can. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this in our clipboard by highlighting it all, or going Control A, and then on our keyboard Control C, or we can go to Edit, Copy. So from there, we're going to go back to Setup, and we're going to copy this report. All right, we're going to call this Multi-Cabinet Labels, and we're going to hit OK. We're going to go to Report Properties, and we're going to go to Script. And notice this is all blank. Just to make sure it's not, or to make sure it is, hit Control Shift and End on your keyboard, and there's nothing there. So now we can just hit Control V, and now we've pasted our script in there. So what we do is we hit Close and Properties. What that does is that refreshes the database. It basically closes the properties, opens it up, runs the script to add any tables and such that we need, and then basically allows us to work with it. So to ensure that it's there, we're going to go to our select fields to include in this report, and we're going to look in this list and see if we find numbers right there. So now that we know it's there, all right, and if I look at it, you see it's got the numbers.num. That's the only field, and that's the only one we need. So I'm going to cancel, and we're going to join this to the cabinets table. What this allows us to do is just basically increase the amount of items based on the quantity. And we do that by going to SQL, and we're going to open parentheses and close parentheses. So basically encompass the from clause into parentheses. And we're going to tell it to do an inner join, because we want to take that numbers table and the cabinets table, we want to join them together so that for every time there's a quantity greater than 1, it's going to, or greater than 0 really, it's going to add a record. If the quantity is 1, it's 1 record. If it's 2, it's 2 records. If it's 12, it's 12 records. Well, for our script, it's still going to be 10. And we're going to tell it numbers on cabinets.quantity is greater than or equal to numbers.num. If we refresh the table, we see we don't get any errors. But if we go to the data preview, we don't get any new records. And well, why is that? Well, that's because if we go to the SQL tab, you'll see we have a group by clause here. And what that's doing is it truncates all the redundant data. So that means that if I have 10 records that are all identical, it only displays 1. Well, we're purposely creating redundant data here. So what do we want to do? How do we fix that? Well, we can just actually tell it to go to group by numbers.num, and then when we refresh the table and go to data preview, you'll see now I have 3 base cabinet items, 2 drawer stack, should be 4 base fillers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 standard uppers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 upper fillers, and a standard tall. All right, if I hit close, and let's go back to our thing here. We go 3 standard base, 2 drawer stacks, 4 base fillers, 6, 3, and 1. So that's correct. That's the number of records we needed. So let's go into our report center. We'll go here to the very end, find our multi-cabinet labels, and we'll view that. And there we go. It was that simple. With explanation and everything, it took less than 10 minutes for me to do. And if you follow the steps that I've provided exactly, this will come out, and this report will come out the way you need it. If you have custom reports or anything like that, you might need to have it slightly differently. But for the most part, this should work on anything you need to do where you need to increase by a quantity. Let's just go over what we did here just to make sure that you understand it. We added basically a join on the cabinets table so that I tell it that if the quantity is greater than or equal to the numbers.num, just add a record. That means numbers 1 for the standard base where we have 3 items, number 1, 2, and 3 will show up. But 4 won't because the quantity is set to 3. So And again, we just told it to group by so that that actually splits it up. And there we go. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much, and goodbye.